on Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out, we're talking about the best day ever. Are you embracing each and every day, no matter what? Have you embraced death so you can fully live your life? Do you find yourself focusing more on what's wrong and what you don't have, or what's right and what you do have? Learn how to live life fully as we continue our month focusing on going with grace. Does your clutter own you? On Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out, we'll teach you how to become aware of your clutter along with action steps to declutter and create the life you desire. Come on, let's get started. When my father was doing all this planning and I had this kind of aha moment, like this makes sense. And I looked at, why am I afraid of death, even though I have these spiritual beliefs? And I made this connection that when we accept death, I mean, I'm not the only one, you can read about it, but when we accept that, because usually death is our greatest fear, then we can truly embrace our life and live it fully. And so the life coaching with me, that's kind of how I connected it to end of life planning. Like, let's make sure you're running on all cylinders, you're living life, you're embracing it, and make sure at the same time you're prepared for death with end of life planning. And maybe that's where we start and work our way back. But that's kind of the reasoning and the inspiration behind this whole month, but specifically this episode. Today's episode is also inspired by my nephew Max and Sybil Rhodes. I encourage you, if you haven't listened to the interview with Sybil, she has lived an amazing life. I still feel a presence at times, and she grew up, her father was a sharecropper. She shared stories. I can't even imagine being that poor, but she embraced life like no one I've ever met. And Max is the same way. I can't tell you, especially when he's little, he'd wake up, this is the best day ever. I think those of us who are in industrialized or Western cultures, this might be more of a challenge to embrace death. And so I encourage you, again, just take that one little step and keep moving forward. I really have seen an expansion and a movement with this. For instance, I watched, and I believe I'll share on another episode too, sorry if I repeat myself, and some things I think are really good, but there is this documentary on HBO, 6 Alternative Ways to Die, something like that. If you Google that, you'll be able to find it. But it was really cool. And because I don't want to leave, I don't want to be embalmed. I know that I've made these decisions. And so as I get more comfortable with that, it has helped me really embrace life. What do I mean by live your best life? Honestly, that's up to your interpretation as far as I'm concerned. Some of the things you might want to think about or ponder: are you living up to your potential? When I was getting married, someone said, don't marry potential. I didn't marry potential, luckily, but I thought that was really good advice. Are you using the term someday? I'm going to make my health a priority someday. I'm going to publish that book someday. I'm going to get my finances in order someday. Professional organizers talk about this a lot because someday usually doesn't come, right? Because we put it out there in the future. We don't have to worry about it. We don't have to take any action. So I'd encourage you, begin to live your best life today. I did an episode, I think 2 or 3 years ago, just I was like, oh, let me just think of 10 pieces of advice, 10 items of wisdom that I believe in and that would like to pass along. So I believe I have not repeated that. I was very careful about that, but I thought, you know what? I want to come up with 10 points today. 10 suggestions for you to live your life fully. And again, take what works for you. If it doesn't resonate with you, put it in the garbage pile. But maybe it might resonate with you 5 years down the road. I'm a huge, firm believer in planting seeds that will blossom later. So the first one, self-love. If you love yourself, you're going to take care of yourself. And when you love yourself, you accept all parts of you and you can really put yourself out there. Because if you're cool with yourself, other people criticize you, say, oh my gosh, that was the dumbest book idea ever. You're like, okay, thanks for your opinion. Next. So how well are you loving yourself? Do you get angry when you make a mistake, or you're like, I learned something, so it's part of life? Are you able to go with the flow mostly? How well do you love yourself? And this, I think, again, kind of boils down with the feeling good enough, worthy enough, and love. When you feel those three things, no matter what, you're in really good shape. Number 2, declutter your life. And what I'm going to use it for in this way, because obviously I talk about decluttering your life, is boiling down what's most important in all areas. Again, it's not just the physical stuff. You're listening to this podcast or you're watching on YouTube, so you're doing this. You're taking steps to declutter your life. So apply it to all areas. If it is finding a wardrobe that you look and feel great in to live life fully, do that. If it is being organized so it allows you to spend time on what you're passionate about, or building relationships with people you love, let the focus be on that. When you have let go of the junk that doesn't matter, and again, as I age, I find myself doing this more often and more easily. I think there's some things you just have to live life to be able to understand and do. But when I boil it down to what's important, then I can live my life fully, because the majority of my focus is on what's important to me. And how can I not get excited when I'm focusing on what matters most? Finding passion about something. You could be an accountant and you do that as your job, but your passion is painting. My mother was a realtor for a really long time. And then when she was about 50, she discovered she's a really good artist. But she found that interest while she was still being a realtor and was able to, it helped her figure out what's important. What's important is I paint. All this craziness from the crazy people and crazy transaction real estate don't matter. Being able to do my art does. Maybe you find your passion through your volunteering. Or maybe how you're raising your children is what you're passionate about. You want to bring in good girls and boys into the world. You want to bring children that have certain values, and you focus your effort that way. I encourage you to define your life. What's your passion and how do you want to express that? Again, I think it's so important. Although I talk about we're part of the oneness and we are one, we're also these individual beings. Do life on your terms. Courage. I mean, talk about being courageous. That's when you're stepping out of your comfort zone and you're doing something. That's about living life fully, because when you shrink back from life, you're not embracing it. And this doesn't have to be a big action. I'm not going to bungee jump. My crazy younger brother did, and he embraced it and has fun, and he could do that. I can't. Have no interest. I'm hoping to maybe skydive. One way you can be courageous is to tell someone that you love them. That takes courage, right? So many of us have these masks on and aren't being authentic, and to say, this is how I feel about you. But it's really freeing when you do that. I used to be deathly afraid of public speaking. I now get paid to speak. I really couldn't have imagined that. I could not stand up for 30 seconds, but I went to these events. I said, I've got to do this. And it helped my courage grow. Maybe you smile at a stranger. That might be courage for you. Whatever it is for you, be courageous. And remember, when you're courageous or you share your gifts with the world, you allow other people the opportunity to do the same, because you serve as an example. And you say, wow, well, she did this. I think maybe I can do it. Maybe I'm going to try to do something courageous today, and I'll share a smile with a stranger. And that energy grows. Number 5, adopt to change. Change is constant. I used to not be able to handle change. Must have been a cat in several past lives, and it just was I struggled. I'm like, oh my gosh. it was like this huge thing happening. Now I'm a lot better at it. Life is easier when I'm flow. Okay, this happened. We're going to change. You know, downsizing was a big change. Moving day, that was a big change. I did what I had control over. Like, okay, I can set up the utilities, and I had no control over, for example, who my neighbors would be, something like that. When you're like, okay, it's change, and I'm going to see all the positive, I'm going to see the good. That's what I'm going to focus on. It's a lot of stress right now, but it'll be worth it in the long run. It was easier. I find it easier to adopt to change now. Again, I had so much resistance. And if you're resistant to something, a couple things to think about. Is it truly not the right move for you? And again, are you listening from your soul or your ego? That's where I get tripped up. So maybe it's something like, warning, Will Rogers, danger, danger. Or perhaps you need to heal something. Perhaps this would be something great for you, but something similar happened in the past and you are making all these assumptions about something. So learning how to adopt to change allows you to embrace life fully.
Our affirmations for decluttering support you in releasing clutter at a deeper level. The meditation begins with focused statements on releasing clutter, followed by powerful positive affirmations for healing, and end with completion statements. The affirmation concludes with a reaffirming meditation exercise to fill where clutter was released. 9 clearing clutter affirmations to choose from. Go to reawakenyourbrilliance.com to learn more.
Personal growth, mindfulness. This is number 6, whatever that term means to you, but just be committed to always growing, never staying stagnant. I bet we all know someone. I think of someone that I went to college with and saw her at our 25th reunion. She had not changed one iota. And that's not a compliment. I'm sometimes like, oh, you're still a down to earth person. That's really great. This person was still really closed-minded, very judgmental, and it was all about her close-knit circle of people, and everyone else, forget it, didn't matter. And it really was heartbreaking to see that personal growth hadn't taken place. Now, again, I don't know anyone's heart and mind. I want to say that. But just from observation, if she had made any great strides in personal growth, it wasn't showing. Your growth doesn't show if you're meditating or eating 100% organic. It shows when the neighbor really angers you or someone hurts your feelings with how you respond. That's going to be a good indicator if you've grown. In the past, things, there's trash in the yard. Am I upset about it? Or am I just going to pick it up and not worry about it? So be aware when life is happening, how you're responding. That's where you're going to know where your growth is. You don't want to remain the same person. I don't want to be the same Julie 10 years from now. If I was the same Julie in 10 years, I'd be really bummed out. The more I have grown, the better my life is. Number 7, allow yourself to be vulnerable. I always believed growing up that being vulnerable was a weakness. And I'd like to think now that it's a strength. As I've grown older, I switched my views on that. And I think I feel like that's almost an American thing. Because I'm American, I feel like I can speak to the culture. I don't know how it is in other countries. But being vulnerable has enriched my life. I'll never forget, Tony and I were dating, and I could feel him pulling back. Now, I'm a huge fan of John Gray's Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, because I think there's we speak different languages, and I think there's a lot of truth. And I had texted him, I don't know, like, when are we going to see each other again? I don't think I would have been that forward. That wasn't my speed. Anyway, I could literally feel him pulling back, or he hadn't texted or something. So I talked to my friend Vince, who was like, yeah, you're being needy, you're being clingy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so not my intention. And that was the truth. It wasn't. Now, in the past, I would have been completely being needy, but I wasn't in this instance. So I talked to my friend Lisa, who had a more spiritual perspective. We talked about it. And so I just texted him and I said, you know what, Tony, I don't mean to be needy or clingy. I just really enjoy spending time with you. And because that's what it was. That was the honest to goodness truth. He texted right away. And from that moment on, we've never been apart. He's never pulled away again. And I believe that's because I allowed myself to be vulnerable. And he could feel, because remember, even if we can't, if it's over text, you're going to feel the energy of something. And I believe he could feel it was sincere and that I was being vulnerable and telling him how I felt. I got burned by that women's group, but I'm committed to making new friends, which for me is just on the making friends level, and even opening up anything at all makes me feel really vulnerable. But I don't want to be in a place where I'm not growing, where I'm not meeting people. And so it's worth it to me to be vulnerable instead of closing myself off. Bren Brown, and I believe you spell her name Brene, so I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but Bren Brown has written a lot on this. I believe she has a whole book just devoted to vulnerability. And I'm sure there are some YouTube videos. She's a great speaker on this. If you want more information on being vulnerable, definitely check her out. My number 8 suggestion to live your life fully is to set goals. Kind of like boring, I can hear my niece saying. But if you want to live fully, if you want to embrace your life, set the milestones so you can tell where you're improving, you can tell how you're moving forward. And even if it's not something tangible, like I want to have 10 books published by the end of the year, or it's not, I want to gain 10 new clients, or I want to have 5 speaking gigs, that's fine and dandy. You can also have that, I want to have less anxiety every day. And you can only determine what that level is. But having the goal, or I want to be more connected with my soul. I want to face my anger head on and release it. I want to have a healthy relationship. I want to have better health. And then within that, set goals. And I did a whole thing, I believe last January, on how to set SMART goals. You can break it down into manageable steps. But goals are guides, they're posts. So we know, okay, I am moving forward. I am doing something. If we don't have goals, then we can just kind of walk through life and maybe not accomplish much. Or you wake up in 10 years like, wow, where did the time go? I thought I'd be doing X by now, but it hasn't happened. So set some goals. Number 9, trust life is working out. Boy, I probably questioned this every day in 2018 and probably a bit this year. For me, what this means is that it allows me to embrace life because I have to believe everything's for the higher good, for the best good, for my good. And even if I struggle, I can learn something and grow from the disappointing moments, or I can stay bitter and question everything. But when I trust it, that just allows me to say, okay, this has to be what's right. You have to be on the path that you're meant to be. And if I do that, then living life fully isn't about just all the things that we desire. It's about all of life. It's about the sadness. It's about the grief. It's about the anger. It's about the joy. It's the happiness, the love. Because life as a human being is all of that. It's not, I know no one who has had a perfect life. I've had no one who has never had any major upset. And so that means the messy, the juicy, the gooey, the ooey, embracing it all and living it. And when you trust that it's working out, then you can get messy. You can dive fully in. And number 10, take care of your health. I can't be the best me or embrace what I'd like to do, embrace people, embrace love, embrace life, if I'm in pain, if I'm bedridden. And how I take care of myself now is going to determine how I am 20 or 30 years from now. Now, I'm someone that believes that You can course correct at any point in life. I truly believe that. I've seen amazing things where I've seen people who have been horribly out of shape transform at my age. But when you take care of yourself, that's going to allow you to be the best version of you. And again, to embrace life. Who wants to embrace life if they are sneezing all the time or sick all the time or tired all the time? So consider making your health a priority and having good health and exercising even when you want to. I'm going to miss this, guys. I normally wouldn't do this. We went and worked out today, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to just wash my face, put on some makeup, and I have my exercise shorts on. But you can't see it because I don't, on the podcast, obviously you don't see me, but on the YouTube video, I'm wearing my exercise shorts under this. But that's because health was a priority. I thought, we have one more episode to shoot for this month. Go home, and then you'll get a nice shower after you finish that. That's because I want to take care of myself. When I'm clear-headed, I can give you, my clients, my husband, my cats, the best version of Julie, or Juji as I'm known to my nieces and nephew. Again, here are just 10 suggestions that I am offering today. You know, I'm all about gratitude, but I mention that a lot, so I wanted to challenge myself and see if I could come up with 10 suggestions that I hadn't done in a similar podcast or had gone in depth completely on all these items for an episode. Figure out what your list would look like and what's important to you. It'll be different for everyone. But this is one of the fun things about being an adult, right? You can figure out, how do I embrace my life fully? Remember, as you build upon one area and clear your inner clutter, your outer clutter is going to flow in that direction too, and follow that. And other areas improve. You can't help but, as you are working on one area, to rub off on another. For example, I started my own business, and that helped me grow and be more confident in other areas of my life. So all those tiny steps that you take add up. They do make a difference. How are you going to embrace life? How are you going to live your life fully? Take actions from today's podcast. Accept that death is inevitable. Recognize how you're already embracing life. Contemplate what living life fully means to you. Create a list of ways you will live your life completely. Implement changes to embrace life and keep building on that. Go out, clear your clutter to create the life you choose, deserve, and desire.
Clearing your clutter allows you to share your gifts with the world. Get your free self-assessment to discover your clutter priority at reawakenyourbrilliance.com. If you've enjoyed Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out, please rate, review, and share us.